Welcome to the next and latest episode of the Athlete Connection. Super pumped for my next guest, my man, my brother from another mother, probably my older brother, as I like to say. But we have the one and the only Mr. Anthony Stovall himself. Say what's up, man.
What's going on? How we doing?
I'm good, man. So just, again, I always kick off the show with a little bit of context for maybe our new listeners or even for yourself, kind of the reason why we're doing this podcast. And ultimately, it's just kind of provide some insight for our consumers, for our audience, the kids, the up-and-coming kids that are looking to kind of walk through your steps and kind of do what you did from a collegiate level or professional level, but really an opportunity for you to share your story, your journey with them. And hopefully shed some light on what that experience was actually like. So, going into that situation, they maybe have a little bit of an idea, what to expect or how to navigate through those situations. So without further ado, again, Mr. Anthony Stovall, tell everybody, obviously where you're at, what sport you play, and maybe just a little bit of how you got started.
Absolutely. So first off, man, appreciate you having me on the show. I'm always pumped to do appearances like this. So yeah, appreciate the opportunity. So I'm in sunny Southwest Florida right now. This is where this is home base for me. So that's basically in Naples, between Naples and Fort Myers area. I'm in a little town called Estero, Florida. It's actually a hidden gem, but basically I'm in Southwest Florida, Naples area. And the sport I play is soccer. So growing up, I started playing soccer roughly about 7-8 years of age, something like that. And I grew up a military brat. So I moved 18 times before I hit high school. So I moved everything was in the states: South Carolina, North Carolina, Colorado, Denver, Louisiana, Florida a little bit. So I've been around a little bit. It gave me an opportunity to really adapt as a youth player. And then I went to the University of South Carolina, go Gamecocks, played there. And then right at the end of my senior season, I had in my head, I want to go pro. I don't want to spend another year in college, and I went the pro route. And really what I did, it's unconventional. I don't suggest anybody does it, but this shows how determined I was to get to the next level. Was that I took 10 months of my life, and for 6 days a week, 4 hours a day, I literally trained. So we're talking about swimming, running, playing. I made sure I ate right, and I was able to hold like a part-time job. So I did that for 10 months. Then at that point, I ended up going to California, turning pro, playing for about seven years in Cleveland and with Chivas. I was in Germany and Belgium. And as we were just talking about a minute ago, I finished up in Rochester, of all places. And then transitioned and moved down here to Florida. And that's it. It's amazing here. And then since I've been here, I started my own private training company. Started out with private training. Now we do camps, clinics, private training leagues. And we're in the process. I didn't even tell you this. We've identified 30 acres of land. And we're actually going to be building a complex and expanding. And we throw camps in a couple other places. And really the thought process, and I'm excited to be on today, because the one thing that we've done for the last 6 years, probably 5-6 years, we've helped players get to the next level to college. So we placed about 270 something players in college.
Nice.
And we take them through a methodical process of getting there. So yes, you got ECNL, you have all of these other things to help you get to the next level in terms of leagues, but we've created like a pathway or basically a system in which you can follow, which will basically, and I hate saying it like this, but it's just, we have 100% placement that will guarantee you that you will play in college and you will have more than one offer. So
that's awesome. It's that roadmap, right? Like everybody needs their roadmap or would be interested in their roadmap. And I'm glad that you're doing that, because that's obviously we're aligned with what we're doing, because I feel like not a lot of people have that opportunity or even aware of that opportunity. And I know that when I was going through my process and you were going through your process, there was not that roadmap. So we kind of had to navigate our own way to make it work. And, it's so competitive these days. Like I feel like everyone needs that advantage and those tools or those mentors to kind of help them do that. So that's dope, man. So before we get into all of that, let's unpack a little bit. Like, talk about, you know, your recruiting process. So obviously you said you went to South Carolina. How was that recruiting process for you? Was it what you expected, or what was that experience like?
Man, recruiting for me, like I literally had no idea about how recruiting worked, recruiting visits, like literally nothing. My dad was amazing at basketball. He ended up having a scholarship to go play in college. He joined the military. My mom went to college as a communications to get her communications degree. So in terms of the sports world and recruiting, all that, like, I had no idea. I'm the firstborn. So I always say there's some guardian angel out there that put an amazing word in for me that helped me get in front of college recruits, or in front of really South Carolina, and another school that I was trying to communicate with was UCLA. I always wanted to go out to Cali, so that's why I ended up in Cali a long time ago. But it's, you know, the recruiting process, I mean, really, it's one of those things, like, you got to be intentional. And if you're not intentional, then you're relying on luck. And yes, I got lucky, and I would have had a lot more offers. I had a lot more opportunity if I would have been engaged in that process, or if I would have known there was even a process to engage in. But ultimately, I got lucky. Somebody recommended me and said, "Hey, this kid from Columbia, South Carolina, you should look at him. He's like, you know, a good player, blah 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 blah." And they came a knocking. They came to see me play. They liked me. They brought me into their ID camp. ID camp was where they were like, "Oh, we know we want him." And then after that, I got that was my junior. So basically in high school, I got lucky because University of South Carolina was able to come and watch me play in high school. And your boy tore it up. Like, I tore it. It's high school. I'm gonna brag on it now still, but I tore it up in high school. So they were like, okay, cool. He tore it up in high school, which is from March to June, or from March to May. They said, come in on an ID camp. I came in on an ID camp where they bring in all the recruits, the players they really want to be in, guys from California, Texas, Jersey, and your boy killed it again.
Hey.
And I'm bragging on me. It's all good. If you, who's gonna be higher on you than you? But I did. So I did well, and I showed well amongst a really talented group. That's what those ID camps are for. And then at that point, they were like, "Hey, we want to bring you on an official visit." We'll talk about visits another time. But I went on my visit, and that kind of sealed the deal for me in terms of, hey, do I want to be here? Do I like the campus? Do I like the facilities? Do I like the dorms? Do I like the guys? Really?
Right.
And I didn't know much. And really, I was like, I want to go here. And like I said, I think I got lucky in my experience. And that I landed at a good school. I knew I wanted to turn pro. I knew that they had my major. I knew it was close to home. Not that necessarily I wanted to be close to home. And it just really all worked out, man.
Yeah, two things that you said that I think are important. Like, talk about, you know, engaging in that recruiting process. Like, what does that mean? How do you do that? Or what's your recommendation? Obviously, knowing what you know now, or obviously being in the position you're in now where you're kind of mentoring and guiding some of your athletes. Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, so the first thing I always tell and talk to players about are two things. When you start this recruiting process, you need to have a checklist of things that you want. You don't need to go, and the thought process is never, oh, pick me, pick me, pick me. It should be, do you have what I am looking for? Because if you go in that way, you can go in with confidence, knowing that, hey, that if you don't have what I want, then I'm not picking you, not being thirsty. For another word. So I always say like this: figure out, one, do you want to be in state or out of state? If you want to be out of state, is there a burning reason you want to be out of state? Like your great grandfather it has a legacy, or there's some kind of legacy that's at the school, or if you've always wanted to go there since you've been 2 years old, or something like that, something that pulls you out of state to a specific school. If you don't have that, start in state, because typically if you pick a dot right where you live and you go in 100-mile radius, that's normally where most people end up going to school, most. And so you start out with, hey, do you want to go in state, out of state? And then the next thing, which is I think is even more important is what do you want to study? Like,
Yeah.
what are you interested in? And the thing is, if it's hey, I want to be a mechanical engineer, great. You know exactly what you want to look for. You know that on your checklist, they better have mechanical engineering. And if they don't, then you can scratch them off the list. If you
Mm-hmm.
don't know exactly what you want to do, well, guess what? The playbook is open. You'll have more options and you'll have more variety. That's not a bad thing. That's not a good thing. It's just your situation. So those are the
Right.
two things that I start out with is in-state, out-of-state, and really not even that order, in-state, out-of-state, and then what do you want to study? And then at that point, then you start to figure out, hey, do you operate well in a big classroom setting, small classroom setting? Do you want to do so basically kids go through about a 36 question checklist, which
Mm-hmm.
helps us narrow down where they want to go. Just stuff like, hey, big school, small school, traditional campus, or a city campus. When you were at University of South Carolina, you could be downtown in 5 Points, and then the next step you could literally be on campus. You don't even know. And then when you go to Duke or North Carolina, it's like, welcome to Duke, welcome, and everything is campus oriented. So
Yeah.
it's all in what you want. Campbell University, that's in I think that's in somewhere in North Carolina. It's a hodunk school in the middle of nowhere. Amazing program, like amazing program. They put out really good products, but you ain't getting no kind of nightlife. You're near no city. You are not doing it. You are focused, or you are getting into trouble because you have nothing else to do out there. One of the two.
Yeah. That's awesome. And I mean, again, you and I, we are walking in similar paths. It's funny.
Mm-hmm.
You grew up on East Coast, I grew up West Coast, and literally like our journeys are so intertwined. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But so I kind of speak to that same thing. Like all of those things that draw you to that school can also be the reasons that either take you away from that school, or they
Yeah.
might be the reason why, you know what, this doesn't work out for me. And I
Yeah.
say that to say, like, outside of those 3 to 4 months that you're competing, you know, there's those
Mm-hmm.
other 6 or 7 months where you're on campus where you have to make sure that you are comfortable being there. So like, talk about that experience for you. Like, what was that like? Obviously outside of, you know, soccer and being recruited, you're on campus. Like, what was that experience like?
Yeah. I went to a really big school,
Yeah.
and be honest, man, I wouldn't trade it for the world. I got,
Hmm.
I'm a pretty energetic guy, outgoing guy,
Yeah.
and I love everything about what the school had to offer.
Hmm.
Um, I think I had to mature into that because, I would say I wasn't mature when I first got into college because
Right.
my dad was hard on me. My dad said, no, when you get into college your first year, you're gonna take 8 o'clock classes. And I'm
Ooh.
like, dude, uh, high school starts at 8:40 and I'm late for that. So let's stop playing. And you know what? I took 8 o'clock classes my 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 freshman
Freshman year.
year. And the 8 o'clock classes, I probably honestly either I failed them, dropped them, or barely made it out. One of the
Mm.
two. And outside of soccer season, man, it was, I joined a fraternity, and there was a lot of activities that I probably shouldn't have engaged in, but they were there.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of variety, but I also met a lot of people. There was a lot of diversity in college. And
Yeah.
I was able to get a really all around experience. The spring season is kind of a make or break point for players. That's either a place where you can take your foot off the gas pedal and
Yeah.
say, hey, you know what? I'm not in season. I can go party. I can be lax in class. I can go out and hang out with whoever, do whatever. Or, like some guys do, they can put the pedal to the metal
Yeah.
and really say, hey, I'm going to get in the weight room. I'm going to
Yep.
make sure that I take the necessary classes that I need to get ahead so I'm not stressed in the fall.
Yep.
Just being able to be in control of their environment. And I'll be honest with you, I'm proud and I'm sad to say that I've experienced both. I've been the guy that has been late to 6 a.m. practice, that's been
Oh
out, that's
no.
been doing everything under the moon. And
Yeah.
then I've been the guy that's been focused, that's been up before 6 o'clock, training before 6 o'clock practice was there. The guy
Yeah.
that's been in study hall, the guy that is organized, the guy that's made sure that the team was moving in the right direction. So I've been on both sides of the coin,
Yeah.
and I'm like I said, it's great to be able to say that, hey, I've seen the good and the bad, if you can avoid the bad,
Yeah.
you will have a lot more success in college. You will have a lot less heartache. That's how I would say. Or you will give your parents a lot less heartache for
Yeah.
sure.
That's awesome. And I'm glad you say that, because I mean, talk about that time frame, or like at what point did you transition from this guy to that guy? Like, what was that catalyst to where you figured out, like, hey, either this isn't working, or B, this is not the way that I need to be operating.
Yeah. So if we're keeping it grimy, we're keeping it 100% real, straight up. My sophomore year, I had these. It's one of those things. Dreams are only dreams, or dreams are dead without action, without a plan. And I always had this dream of being a professional player, and said, I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna go there, and I'm gonna do that. And I wasn't putting in the work. I wasn't putting in the time in the classroom or on the field. I had a girlfriend. I had everything. I was on the poster for the school because your boy could ball and all of that. And then, long story short, and I'll be real, like, I failed out of college. I failed out of college after that was when I hit rock bottom. My sophomore spring semester, I failed out of college, and my life literally, I was in such a and this is the bad part. You ready? So forevermore, I remember I had asked my dad for a car, and he had never got me one. And right at the end of my sophomore fall semester, I was like, Dad, hey, I got good news. I'm gonna go pro. Like, no plan, no nothing, but that was my heart. Like, I'm gonna go pro. And he got me a car, and basically found out I failed out of school. That was it. And gave it back, broke my heart. And really, I really realized that, if I'm going to get to that next level, if I'm going to really achieve the things I want in my life, period, like, I'm going to have to really dig deep. So in that spring semester, I went to a technical college, and I trained like it was nobody's business. Came back, captain, came back, assist leader, came back, first team all conference, and just really getting my life going in the right direction. On Dean's list, just it turned me around. And like I said, I don't wish that on anybody. Don't wait till you hit rock bottom to say, okay, I want to get it right. Like, literally, like, it's one of those things where make that decision and ride with it. And I know what the catalyst was. It was actually my freshman year. This is a little turning point a little bit, but you have to figure out who's in your circle. Who's in your circle? And this is gonna sound bad. And if there's any fraternity guys or any sorority people or anything like that, but at the end of the day, soccer is its own fraternity. And having to try and mix and mingle, being in a fraternity and a soccer athlete was tough, because there was a lot of partying and there's a lot of playing on soccer. There's a lot of sacrifice, dedication, and the two don't mix well at all. And so that was conflicting, because tell me who your closest 5 friends are, and I'll tell you exactly where you're going. And for me, some of my closest friends were people that were not heading the same direction as my soccer friends or my soccer teammates. So when I changed that dynamic, really my freshman year, I was heading the right direction. I was focused on school. I was focused on soccer. And then that's when, I started to turn my attention to something else, and my circumference changed. And so when I switched it back to, hey, I want to be around soccer-oriented people, goal-oriented people who are really trying to reach for the stars and being disciplined and consistent, then that's when I saw the change. And
that's awesome, man. I mean, we talked about that on a couple of our previous episodes. It's like having those people in your corner. Who is your mentor? Early on, identifying like who's that mentor, aligning yourself up with those people to kind of put you on that right trajectory. Because you're right, people that aren't in your same situation or have the same opportunities, they don't necessarily understand it. So they might be doing what's best in their situation, or something that they're able to do, not understanding that you're trying to dip your toe in both worlds, because you have, the school side of things, but
Yeah.
you have those non-athletes that don't understand that day in that life of the study hall expectations and all of those things that you necessarily have to do. The 6 a.m. weights, like you mentioned, they're
Yeah.
not doing those things.
They
And I
don't
think,
have to. Yeah.
right, they don't have to. That's not part of their job requirement. And I was talking with Coach Reno she's a women's basketball coach out here at Cal State San Bernardino. She's saying, this is your job. And,
Yeah.
once you understand, like, this is a full time, almost like a 9 to 5, never turn off, to where you're doing all these things academically and, as an athlete, those are things that you're constantly, there's always something to do. And if you're missing that gap, or you're missing that opportunity, either you're going to fall out, or, you're going to get replaced. And that's
or you're gonna get
reality.
replaced. Yeah.
That's the reality of the situation. So
That's
that's
big.
awesome.
Yeah,
So,
and it's kind of something that happened in my sophomore year too. Like, I didn't grind like I needed to, my freshman year, and there was a sophomore that came in, and
there you go. Uh-oh, we froze. I think he got a phone call. I'll give him a second.
There we go. All right, yeah.
You got a phone call.
So,
I got it. It's all good.
No. Something happened on your end. No,
my bad.
Playing.
We're live.
No,
We're good.
my freshman year summer, I didn't grind like I needed to, or I was okay.
Yeah.
But then it was a kid that came in, highly recruited, came in, took my spot, and just like that. And luckily, I had a lot. I have a lot of determination in me, and I turned it around quickly. And but it's one of those things, man. If you're not on your game, somebody's gonna come, and you're gonna be replaced, or you're gonna get booted out. One of the two. So
how different do you think that situation or that experience would have been for you if you had someone like you right now, for example, giving that guidance? Like, how different do you think that outcome would have been, starting off into your freshman year, or even helping you navigate that situation your sophomore year?
Yeah, you know what? I think it would have. I think, I needed that experience. It was just crazy. I needed that experience, or else I probably would have went along just like, oh yeah, but if I would have had somebody to prevent me from going down that road, I think my college career could have been one for the history books. I think so. That's just me personally, because the amount of training, like I said, I took 10 months out instead of playing my senior year. I took 10 months out and I trained.
Yeah.
And I mean, you saw me, like I was on a whole nother level. And to think if I would have been playing in college like that would have been
lights out.
Easily would have been. And my thing is, I still ultimately ended up where I wanted to end up in the MLS. But I think I would have had a much easier path. And a much and probably even, I would even say like this, probably a longer career, and I probably wouldn't have bounced around in MLS and not the USL or anywhere else like that. That's probably the difference.
I agree. Like, I'm not saying, you definitely would not trade any experiences, because we all know like that's what shapes who you are and what you're doing today. I'm just of the mindset, like, same for me. Like, if I had someone to kind of point these things out, like, hey, this is what's going to happen, so that way you're aware when that happens, how to respond, how to react, how to pivot. No different from, on the soccer pitch, like preparation. So when it happens, it's not expected.
Right.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, I think that's one of those voids that hopefully we're able to kind of help out with. And I'm sure you're mentoring and coaching your athletes with today. So once they get there, that'll help them to be the difference, to stand out from that kid that's coming in when you're a sophomore trying to take your spot.
And I got an 8-year-old son that loves the game a lot. So
he's a baller, by the way. Baller.
Yeah, he's doing. He likes it a lot. So we got a lot of work to do. But he is. It's one of those things. That's what I think about. I think about how can I guide him in the right direction. Right. And he's making some good strides. He's a whole like I said. I started playing when I was like 8.
Yeah.
And that's when I had no recollection of the game or anything like that. And he's 8 and he has the world at his. But ultimately trying to make sure I can guide him in the right direction. And the good thing is that he still thinks dad is cool, dad is fun.
Yeah.
We'll see how much longer that lasts, though.
Yeah. No, I remember. I mean, not to go off on a tangent, but I remember a couple of the first videos that you threw up on social media, and I was like, "Yo, he might have something. He
Yeah,
might have something."
he's definitely. Well, we got him playing. Well, we got him playing up. Yeah, and just we'll go down this rabbit hole just a little bit. He's playing up, and the big thing is he just loves it, man. Like people keep saying, like, how much do you guys train? Like real talk, we don't train. We don't train a whole lot. Starting what is the day? No, starting Monday, I actually have a training regimen where we will start to train.
Right.
Only because he asked me to train him, and
There you
that's what
go.
I've been wanting because he needs to make it his own.
Right.
So, but my thing is just to get back on track with players that are trying to get to that next level. Ultimately, they need to figure out and define for themselves what success looks like. What does that look like? You need to have goals. You need to have things that you're aspiring for, and don't be afraid and say, "Oh, that's not realistic." Because the moment you do that, like then you cut yourself off at the knees. One,
Mm-hmm.
and then two, like we go back down to our standards. So if you say, "Hey, I want to score 30 goals," and your standard is 20, well, here's the good thing: you're always going to hit 20, which is better than 10. So don't say 20 and rely on 10. So always shoot above whatever you think you can do. Right. And half the time, either you'll hit it and you'll realize, "Oh my God, I can do more," or "Man, I was trying to get there, but I only got here, and I'm still one of the best at what I do."
Right.
So,
yeah. And I'll add on that before we pivot, but set your standards based off of your standards, not off of someone else's standards and what someone else is doing. I think that's the biggest thing. But last couple questions. So I know you obviously, and I know you wouldn't change anything for the world. However, if you would do anything differently, whether that's getting recruited, your high school experience, in your collegiate experience, post college, if there was anything you would go back 10, 15 plus years ago, what do you think you would do differently? And that's academically or athletically.
So there's two things. I remember when IMG Academy opened up back in the day. This is kind of crazy too. IMG Academy opened up, and they were requesting players to go and trial, or something was going on. I just knew deep down in my gut, man, I need to get to Bradenton. And I asked my parents, can I go?
So real quick, let everybody know what IMG Academy is. Like, how prestigious is that at that
IMG,
time?
And back in the day, it was called Voluntary Academy. It's called IMG now. IMG is basically like a residential academy for youth players. And at the time, they were bringing in some of the best youth players across the country to go to Voluntary Academy and to basically train, develop, and compete, and prep those players for being professionals. And there was, for whatever reason, I knew there was an opportunity to go there. And I told my parents about it. And they, for whatever reason, I don't know what happened, but it didn't materialize. But I knew in my gut, and this is why I always follow with everything I do in my life, I like to follow my gut. My gut is great and it's right. And if I never second guess it, everything is right. Just look at my wife. Boom. That's the best decision I've made. And
had to do it.
What?
Had to do it.
My yeah. Getting points for this one. But then the other one would be like this: if I could change something, that isn't it that necessary, because that wasn't in my control. That's a parental thing. In my experience would be, honestly, and whatever, they're gonna hate me if I say this, I wouldn't have pledged. I would have.
Why?
Because the bandwidth, the capacity for me to live a double life was too much. When I was about to go and pledge, I'll never forget this. And I told my wife, man, at times, I'm like, right before I was about to go and pledge, I had made a pact with a friend of mine that used to be an athlete, but we were running together and we were going to study hall together. And we were just focused on where we wanted to be in life. He knew he knew that he was in love with business and wanted to move in that direction. I knew I was in love with soccer and acting and moving in the right direction. And we, every single day, were meeting in the library, like 2 hours, just,
Doing work.
really, just doing
Yeah.
work, doing stuff off the field that you needed to do, making sure that our life was prepped for the next day, like just really good life habits.
Yeah.
And when I started to go pledge, I mean, all of that went out the window. I started having friends that were in an environment that really don't amount to anything. You know, going to parties was great. Trust me, your boy showed out. Like, it was amazing. Like, you know me. But really, man, like, it amounts to nothing, really.
Right.
And
Right.
if I would have stayed on that path, I think that life would have looked a lot different.
Different. Yeah.
Yeah. I would have
Now
ended
that's
up where I'm at. Hey, I would have ended up where I'm at now, which I
right.
like what I do right now. I love it.
Yeah.
But my 19 to probably 29-year-old life, that decade right there would have looked a lot
Yeah.
different.
No, that's awesome. I mean, that just goes back to what we were saying, like position and aligning yourself with people that have those similar interests and goals with
Yeah,
you, like what you started to, because like you said, you don't really realize how big of an impact that has a potential to make down the line.
absolutely.
Last question, and I know
Yeah.
this is obviously your heart, but like if there's any advice you
Oh
had to
man.
give young athletes, obviously young Sovi listening to this, like what advice would you give young Sovi if they were about to start off on where you ultimately obviously traveled through?
Man, I think I hit it. I think I hit it earlier. You gotta have a roadmap. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
what kind of roadmap it is. You gotta know what you want to know where you're going and what you're doing. And having when you set, so we do this thing. So every single day I get up in the morning and I have 3 verbal affirmations that I say to myself, and it's that you're a game changer.
Mm,
Something amazing is going to happen, and you're right where you need to be. And I
mm,
say those things to myself 10 times in the mirror every single day, because ultimately confidence is the key. That's what my company believes. That's what I believe. That's what I have instilled in my company, and making sure that youth players believe in that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, if they can figure out things that they want to achieve, have it have a visual on it, what it ends up doing is that they end up focusing on these things
mhm,
that they're trying to achieve. So if they're trying to be an artist and they're trying to make sure they have X amount of pictures per day or whatever the case, now you have tangible things that you're trying to do every single day. So guess what? You're not going to do. You're not going to get distracted with all the other stuff that's going on. So
mhm. Yeah.
laser focus. What do you want? If you don't know what you want to do, then write down the things that you're interested in, the things that you want to strive for, the things that you want to achieve. But if you're an
Mhm.
athlete, it's really easy. Like at
Right.
the end of the day, you know that if you're 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, you know that
Mhm.
you want to play in college. Awesome. Okay, what do you want to do when you get to college? What are some of the things you want to achieve? Who are some of
Mhm.
the people you want to be around? And then after that, what do you want to do after college? Is it you want to turn pro? Okay, that's great. Hey, do you want to go to grad school? Do you want to become a doctor? Do you want to
Mhm.
change majors? Do you want to travel? Like making sure that you set these goals. Do you want to be a millionaire? Do you want to be a billionaire? You
Right.
know, do you want to have X amount of do you want to own your when do you want to own your first home? All of these little things that helps them focus
Mhm.
on moving forward. Because if they just sit back and say, I'm not doing, I'm just chilling, that's when distraction comes in. And that's when ultimately it can pull you away from what you need to be doing. And that's what happened to me. I didn't have, I remember in my high school year, I had all of these goals to hit. Like, man, I had so many goals. And the crazy thing is, I probably hit about 95% of them, which is
Mm.
awesome. But when I got to college, I remember I was just like, oh, okay, cool. I'm here, I'm playing. And the only goal was just to play pro. It wasn't anything, there wasn't more than that. And that's a
Right.
really big goal. Like, what are some of the things that you can do every single day? So long story short, can you make daily goals or create daily habits? Can you
Mhm.
have biannual goals and can you have 4-year goals? That's it.
Nice.
If you can do those things, the daily goals will create daily habits. Those daily habits now will help you fuel and get moving in the right direction for your 6-month goal, and then for your yearly goal, for your seasonal goal. But ultimately, setting daily, setting monthly, setting yearly goals will set you up for success. Period. And getting around the right people. Sorry, man. There's so many. I'm so sorry.
No, you're good. Do it.
Surrounding yourself with the right people.
Yeah.
I think that's super key. Like, why do kids go to private school? Yes, get a good education, but really the kicker is this: the kicker is your network. Like, if you're who you surround yourself with will determine the direction that you're going. I have three different mentors around me. I got a soccer mentor, I got a business mentor, I got a life mentor, and all of them are great and all of them fantastic. And no, they're not the same person. The crazy thing is, no, they're not the same person, because the business person may not have the core traits that you want in your home family life. The person that is my soccer, that is my soccer mentor, may not have the same goals as my businessman. They definitely don't have the same goals right there. But like, all of those people have something different to offer, and ultimately they help me become better. So daily, monthly, yearly goals. Surround yourself with the right people.
That's awesome, man. Well,
I think that's
now that's a lot, and that's good, because again, you hit on everything that we're looking to do. Provide some insight, obviously some inspiration, but also the context behind why it's important. So that's huge.
Yeah.
So just wrapping up, Stovey, thanks again for hopping on with us. Really appreciate your time. I will give you a minute to really plug in your company, the name of it, how they can find you, how anyone can reach you, if they have any thoughts, questions, or anything else they want to connect with you on.
Gotcha. Appreciate it. All right. So company is Stovistars, spelled STOVISTARS.com. We also, in transition, you can also find the name under Soccer Performance Academy, SPA. We have a Twitter, IG handle is Stovistars. Facebook, we're on Facebook as well. And what we do is this: we do camps, clinics, private training, we do leagues, and we do college placement to help kids get to their next level. Confidence is the key. We want them to be all that they can be. And ultimately, if it doesn't matter if you're local or if you're remote, we'll do anything we can to help you get to your next level in soccer.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I really appreciate you and watching you obviously make an impact on these kids. So keep doing what you're doing, man.
Hey, appreciate you, man. I love it.
Yes,
man.
Sir. All right, guys. So that's a wrap. As always, if you guys have any thoughts, questions, really just want to learn more about the organization, hit us up at tryelementsfitness.com. Same handle at tryelementsfitness if you can find us on Facebook and Instagram. And until then, we'll catch you next time. Peace.